All right. Welcome back to another exciting episode. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to set a little context. This may be one of the most unconventional conversations we have had on the pod. The ideas you're about to hear challenge some of our deepest assumptions about parenting, childhood, authority, and even what it means to learn. For some of you, they may sound inspiring. For others, they may sound completely unreasonable. Either way, I think they are ideas worth engaging with. My guest today is Dr. Aaron Stupple, a practicing physician in Western Massachusetts, a father of 5, including 2.5-year-old twins, and also the co-author along with Logan Chipkin of The Sovereign Child. Now, The Sovereign Child is a phenomenal book on parenting. It's a book that makes what initially sounds like a radical case. If you read the book, it speaks about no rules, no fixed bedtimes, no forcing children to eat, no compulsory schooling. So at its heart, it's a simple but profound idea that children deserve the same respect, autonomy, and freedom that we instinctively extend to our adults. So if hearing that immediately makes you want to argue with him, you're not alone. Aaron has had those conversations on many of the biggest podcasts, and you'll find plenty of debates online about screens and sugars and sleep, school, and almost every other parenting topic you can imagine. But I didn't want this conversations to become another round of those debates. Instead, I just wanted to understand the philosophy behind it. So in this conversation, we explore the ideas that shaped his thinking, from Karl Popper to David Deutsch, and what it really means to believe that knowledge grows through criticism rather than authority. We talk about why Aaron believes the concepts like willpower and self-discipline are often misunderstood, and what it means to live without believing that anyone, including yourself, has the final answer. Aaron and I first crossed paths years ago on AirChat, so this conversation has genuinely been a long time coming. Now, one last thing before we begin, Aaron and Logan have made this book, The Sovereign Child, freely available online. So if today's conversation leaves you curious, you can dive into the book yourself, and I'll make sure the links are available on the show notes, so do check it out. With that, please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Aaron Stupple. All right. So Aaron, welcome to the show. So happy to have you join me today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much. Such a privilege.
So Aaron, I think we did connect first time on the AirChat platform, a wonderful platform. We got a lot of like-minded people, interesting conversations.
Yeah, those were fun days.
Yeah. I think I never interacted with you when we were on AirChat. You were in rooms which were very interesting. You know, you used to speak on various topics, be it parenting, be it physics. I think the last I remember was you were very passionately speaking about superconductors. Do you remember that?
Oh man, yes. The superconductor phase. That was fun.
Yeah. Like I remember you really went on a whole rant on what you deciphered from the technology, and you were just trying to make sense of that.
I forgot about that. That was, it was, it was fun to get excited about a potential discovery and also try to figure out if this was nonsense or not. Turns out it was nonsense.
Yeah, but the hype was very, very close to reality, right? I think it felt like zero resistance, superconductor. It's going to change the entire world of tech if that comes into existence.
Yeah, and there were these videos, and the videos were purportedly, showing things, and then were the videos real, or, was it all scam or whatnot? I can't remember what the final verdict on that was.
Yeah, it kind of died down.
Definitely not room temperature superconductor, but...
Great. I want to start by telling you, I'm a parent myself. I have a
nice.
14-year-old daughter.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So my wife and I, when we decided early on that we were not going to go through the conventional schooling system, and we wanted to, in fact, do homeschooling. This was then. But then we also eventually found a school which had a similar open schooling principles. And then we found very good alignment with that school in terms of the philosophy of raising children, because the school typically has a class size of around 15 students in each class.
Nice.
It's the same bunch of friends who kind of grow up, and the entire education system or the teaching is not fear-based. It's pretty much, you can ask questions, and you won't be judged.
Nice.
And a very open system. So since then, she has never once wanted to skip the school.
Oh, wow.
Every time I've told her, if it's a Monday morning, I'll say, hey, why don't you stay back, bunk the school? She said, no, I just want to go to the school. So that tells a lot about the schooling is doing something right there.
Yeah.
And what we notice is she need not be instructed what she should do within the house or outside. And she operates from a place that isn't kind of conditioned. And it's genuinely very beautiful to watch that. So for years, we were doing a lot of things which are pretty much in alignment with what you have brought in the book. But we did have moments where we felt that, what if, like we are wrong? What if we are doing something which is not the right way of, raising a child? And when your book kind of came out, it made a lot of sense and it explained things in a way which I never could articulate, and it kind of gave it a real good shape. It kind of took me away from the guilt.
Oh, good.
So it gave me a feeling of lightness to the whole parenthood. So that's what your book did to me. So I just want to kind of tell you that, thank you so much for writing the book, and you coming on this conversation itself is, very like a full circle moment for me.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that makes me feel so good. Yeah, I've got lots of doubts myself. And then you get those kind of moments where you're like, and things are relieved. And I'm continually second guessing myself. And I think that's the nature of things, right? Like when you're doing something important, just blithely marching forward, absolutely sure that you're doing the right thing is not that there'd be a warning sign, right? If that's what one's attitude was. So I think lots of doubt and reconsidering is totally normal. And another thing about what you said is there is a certain lightness when you kind of accept that mistakes are going to happen. That was one of the aha moments for me early on, was that failures are inevitable. And the question is, how are you going to deal with those failures rather than what are you going to do to minimize the failures? Because that's much more tense and stressful. It's like, how do I do this right? Instead of, I'm going to make mistakes. Things are going to go wrong. Failures are going to happen. How do we not bake in failures? How do we deal with them? And how do you make progress? It's such a much more fun way of doing it, to think about making progress rather than applying the right set of rules, right? Like, it just doesn't feel like a very progress-oriented approach.
So Aaron, there is enough content out there and your body of work is very much available for people to check out. There's a book, you've been featured on many podcasts and shows. But if someone didn't know who you are, they come up to you and ask, like, what do you do? Typically, how do you introduce yourself?
I mean, myself, I'm a regular practicing clinical doctor in the US, and I work in a hospital-based system, but that's pretty separate from this whole subject area. And I've got 5 kids. Oldest is 8. The youngest are 2.5, and been a lot of time taking care of those guys. And got a lot of different, philosophical interest and other topics of interest. And how I got in this parenting journey was becoming very interested in a particular line of philosophy that came from this physicist in Oxford named David Deutsch. And he developed his line of thinking heavily influenced by Karl Popper. And so then I try to introduce who Karl Popper is and what the general line of thinking is. And it's not that complicated. It's not that abstruse or esoteric, but it is pretty novel. It's also very consistent with a lot of common sense, but then it's also very counterintuitive. So it runs against a lot of common sense ideas or intuitive ideas. And Karl Popper's big discovery or big topic area was the philosophy of knowledge. The technical term for that is epistemology. That's a mouthful. And just the strangeness of that word indicates how poorly we understand the philosophy of knowledge, basically, how knowledge works, what it is. A well-informed person knows something about biology, knows something about physics and government and culture and history and whatnot, but how knowledge works it's poorly understood. And just this, like I said, the strangeness of this term epistemology is indicative of that. And basically, Karl Popper made a major discovery in the 20th century that went largely unnoticed. Certain things were attributed to him correctly, but that was a small piece of the whole picture. And David Deutsch was very enthralled with the whole picture and incorporated it very deeply into his scientific work as a theoretical physicist. And he's not a lightweight. He's a very accomplished theoretical physicist, credited with laying the foundations of quantum computing and other things. He has been trying to explain to the world via his books the totality of Popper's discovery and understanding of how knowledge works. And then within that totality, there's a huge application to children and how to treat children, because children are knowledge creators like all of us. And knowledge creation is a special thing and requires special well, it's very special, very special. And there are all sorts of misconceptions about it that wind up having huge implications for kids. And the culture is full of fallacies that are just taken for granted that are very wrong, just as wrong as some of the major fallacies that have been overcome in biology and physics and other disciplines, morality, ethics. There were wrong ideas that were watershed moments when these wrong ideas were recognized to be wrong, and then we moved forward. But with parenting and children, how we think about kids, there are massive wrong ideas just sitting there that we have not recognized, and the implications are enormous for the culture, for the planet, for the species, right? But also enormous for individuals. And that's one of the most fun things about it, is that this topic is both very big, very broad, very grandiose, and also extremely practical, extremely local. And it's that duality has always just thrilled me about any set of ideas. And this one more so than any. I've got a bunch of kids, and so it's every single day of my life, but also very big picture and very philosophical and just very big. So that is that's how I present it, and then I let the person say, "Oh, really? Tell me more about the," and then I go on. But I try to give people an out so they don't have to hear me drone on about philosophy.
I'm sure you won't be able to do this introduction in an elevator for sure. So it's going to be. So, Aaron, were you exposed to these ideas after you became a parent, or this was much before that?
It was right at the beginning. Our first daughter, she was a couple months old when I really got into David Deutsch's book, Beginning of Infinity. And once this really hit me, I had this book on repeat. And then I discovered the parenting element of it right when she was like 10 months old. So the timing was perfect.
But before that, you did have some ideas about parenting.
Oh, yeah.
Was that like a 180-degree change and shift, or was the delta wasn't too much?
It's more like, I'll tell you the backstory. I was a teacher right out of college for 5 years, and I was very idealistic in the beginning of my teaching career, and I wanted to set kids free, and I was very anti-school, and I wanted to change things from within. So I'll be a teacher, and I'll close the door, and I'll have my classroom, and I can explain to kids how the world works and not spare them the indignities of school and relate to them. And they just walked all over me, because in a compulsory environment, somebody comes in like that, fresh out of college, they're going to get eaten alive. And I got eaten alive. And that was a major blow. And this realism set in, cynicism, basically. But I guess I didn't, cynicism is a tough word, but you got to be a hard ass, and you have to have control, and you can't do anything without first achieving control. And so I got very good at controlling a classroom, managing a classroom, middle school, high school, little kids. I figured out over 5 years really how to control a room. And then I would let my humanity out, but it would be always this grip, and I could always squeeze it and regain control. And I formed these ideas about human nature, that people really don't want freedom. They say that they want freedom, specifically kids, but they don't know what they want, and they will make choices that will be worse off for them. And they actually want you to impose a structure on them so that they can then thrive within that structure. It's a very, you'd call it authoritative parenting style. It presents itself as being this rational compromise between being totally permissive and being totally authoritarian. And I was a devotee of that style. I cared a lot about kids' autonomy. I wanted kids to flourish, and I wanted them to, manage their own lives and become independent and successful and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to be their authoritarian, but if things started to go off the rails, I would clamp down. For their own sake, you need to clamp down. And I was confident about, becoming a parent and being very good at it. Like I ran, my kids liked my class. They did well on their exams. I knew I was going to do well at this, and I knew that I had the right approach. Like I understood kids, I understood human nature. I'd been through the fire with teaching, and so 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids in my own house, that's going to be a piece of cake. And then was it a 180 degree? So it's not a 180 degree shift. Instead, it is stepping away from, I think this is what every single parenting, I've read a fair number of parenting books and philosophies, and every single one of them sets up this framework saying it's, there's a totally permissive option on one hand, there's a totally authoritarian option on the other, and then there's all this middle ground. And what parenting is finding that middle ground, finding out where do you draw the line, what do you allow and what do you disallow. And every book and every, school of thought is just moving the dial back and forth. With school, the dial should be over here. With food, the dial should be over there. And everybody fights about it. Are screens good or bad? How much screens should be allowed? Netflix and movies are good, but YouTube and TikTok are bad, right? It's back and forth with all this stuff over and over and over. What do you allow? What do you disallow? Where do you draw the line? And this is, I think, just stepping out of that entire framework, stepping away from that spectrum. It's just rejecting the question. The question of where to draw the line is the wrong question. And the quick refutation of that is that totally permissive parenting amounts to neglect. It amounts to, it's irrational, right? It's saying, it's abdicating your job as the parent. That's wrong. You are a parent. You had a kid. You can't walk away from it. So total neglect or permissiveness is irrational. And then total authoritarianism is also irrational because reasons don't matter. It's my way or the highway, right? Because I said so, reasons are irrelevant. I make the rules. So that's irrational. So then what the premise is that something in between, some combination of these two irrational positions somehow becomes rational. That's also irrational. That's also nonsensical. You don't, we don't do this in other theories, right? You don't say scientific theory A is wrong and scientific theory B is wrong. But if we combine the two, it's going to be correct.
When you put it that way, yes, I know it's something that we will reject, as an approach that we would do. But when it comes to parenting, people think, best way is kind of have a blend of both these extremes, that we are somewhere in a balance, which is
right. Which sounds thoughtful and reasonable, a balance, right? It's balanced, it's compromise, but it's actually a confused mess. Yeah. And it doesn't help parents out because you're still stuck with, well, where do I draw the line? Right? It's totally arbitrary. I'm going to decide when bedtime is. Like, why is it 7:30? Why has it become 8:00 when you reach a certain age? Right? You're just constantly making up these rules. And then, if you have any self-doubt, you're kind of faced with your own self-doubt. And then you have to control, you have to hang on to these rules. So it's a certain amount of effort or energy is spent being strong, maintaining these arbitrary, there's nothing more crippling, I find, than trying to present a tough guy appearance around something, or present an air of being convinced that something's right that is not right. Like that's exhausting.
Yeah. Like this happens with, when kids have to read something which they are really not interested in. And you as a parent know that, this is not going to be of use, but then you need to study. You need to score the marks, right? So there is a complete incongruence there, right? Like, that your body and mind definitely is convinced it is not useful, but you have to make them do that, right? So yeah.
Right.
So before all this, I want to ask, before the book and the hospital and the philosophy around David Deutsch and Popper, you as a kid, like what kind of child were you to your own parents?
Oh, I was, I think my parents would agree. I was a very compliant. I grew up in a very close family. It was my brother and I. My parents were very into being good parents. They were very interested in the topic, and they would talk about parenting all the time. As we were growing up, they would tell stories about what their parents did. They would analyze over and over what they thought was wrong about what their parents did and what they're trying to do to correct that and what they're trying to do better. And it was just and I was on board with it. I agreed that, I liked how my brother and I were as people. I liked how our family was. I was proud of my family. And I had no sense of rebellion. I was pretty much on board with the whole project. So my parents would say that I was dutiful, obedient. My parents didn't have a lot of rules. They were not very strict, but they did have some right. There were a few rules, but they were very
like a strong ones. Yeah.
Very clear red lines that you did not toy with. But when it came to everything else in the world, school in particular, they were on my side. My dad in particular was really did not like school, had zero respect for school, hated authority, and basically presented my brother and I as, it's us against school. You're going to do this and get through it. These people are going to make you do a bunch of nonsense. It's nonsense. They were always on our side in any conflict with the school.
Oh, and beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, that made an enormous difference. Even doing school, but never being forced to, when I came home, I could always be honest with them about what I thought. And they were never going to say, well, it's important. You have to do this. And it was more like, well, let's figure out how you can get by. Let's figure out how you can do well in this system. It was a lot of how to placate other people, how to do the bare minimum and still do well. If I didn't get good grades, they didn't really care. They wanted me to live up to my potential. But anyway, that was just a huge difference. And I don't know, I should have made it more clear in the book that, a lot of parents are stuck. They don't want to send their kid to school, but they don't have other options. And just sending them to school, but making it clear that you're on their side, I think has an incredible impact.
Absolutely. I think we have attempted something similar where, regardless of the school, if my daughter ever wants to discuss anything under the sun, she needs to know that we are there for her to be heard, like without any judgment. I think that feeling when a child gets that, regardless of whatever the screw up happens outside of the world, they have their parents that they can go and openly talk about. That kind of takes care of everything else, right? Regardless of the other aspects of schooling or life.
Yeah, it's huge because in one of the big arguments for school is that, well, this is real life, right? You're going to have a job. You're going to have to deal with other people. You're going to have, authoritarians in your life. And if you never have any exposure to them, then you're not going to know how to deal with them. And it's true. You are going to have to deal with jerks in real life. Although one beautiful way to deal with jerks and unpleasant people is to figure out how to get away from them. All right. And the one lesson you get from school is that, no, you can't get away from them, which is so foreign in terms of how actual life goes. But nonetheless, exactly, having genuine, authentic relationships with people who you can be honest with is a crucial lifeline. So, I forgot where I was going with that, but
yeah, no, you were talking about your childhood. So I was just trying to ask, how was your relationship with your parents and when you were a child and, their style of parenting. So you gave me a picture of that. But I wanted to ask, in the book, you open with a dedication to your parents. You just write 2 words, thank you, and you open it almost bracing yourself, worried that they'll read the whole thing as a criticism of how they raised you. So did you give them the book? What did they actually say? Yeah.
Yeah, I was very worried about that. And because they prided themselves, they still pride themselves, right? They're big. You ask them like, what did your life amount to basically? And they say they raised 2 boys and they didn't do a bad job, right? That's what they would say. They did a good job and they really did do a very good job. I wanted to send this message to all readers that, it's a very personal thing to talk about and a lot of people, and this is the major source of why I think, right? Why is it that you can have these major misconceptions about children sitting in plain sight that society has not yet discovered, where we have discovered all these other things, right? We've made these incredible discoveries. And I think childhood, we are late, more or less. We are kind of not as advanced as we could be. So how could these big misconceptions be sitting in plain sight? And one of the reasons is that there's an enormous amount of, stigma and shame that comes with the idea that you were a bad parent, as it should be, right? That will be horrible. And I really, really don't want to be the parenting guy. I don't want to be telling people that, there's a moral element to all of this, of course. And particularly for my parents, I didn't want to be complaining and and kind of whining that, I wasn't treated well or anything like that. At the same time, things can always be improved upon. And so that's what I said in the dedication. That's what and I think this landed with my parents that, they wanted to make progress from what their parents did. And they would want me to make progress from what they did. That's the natural way of things. And they would sign up for that. So that's what I want to make clear in the dedication or the acknowledgments. I forget the opening of the book to make it clear that I'm just presenting some ideas to improve things and without stigmatizing people for doing things differently.
One other thing which occurs to me is, especially when we speak about parenting, it is like a team thing, right? Your spouse has to be on board with you on the idea, right? So I'm curious how much of it was because your wife also was equally in the same growth mindset.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So could you tell a little bit about that?
I chose incredibly well. I just thank my stars that I found my wife and she agreed to marry me over and over and over. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And she's not really into philosophy. Not at all. Like reading philosophy books is not her thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, she's a very rational person, but she's a physician as well. She's a very thoughtful person, a very smart person, but, also has strong convictions and whatnot. So she's certainly not a pushover. But also like, here, I read how to do this and let's do it like this is not a very, that just doesn't fly. People who are married, probably a lot of people have this similar thing. You can't just, I don't know.
I saw something on the YouTube, and now this is a new way to do it,
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you talking about? But fortunately, she had some very, very strong intuitions. She also had a great childhood. It was another thing. I didn't want to offend my in-laws. She considers her childhood to be just, she cherishes it. And she had some very strong intuitions about personal liberty regarding food and sleep, pretty much. Those were her big things anyway. I really didn't have to convince her anything on that. And so that's kind of the heart of it, right? That's like, those are so basic to personal freedom, is eating what you want and sleeping when you want. That's like, so it was not hard to build from there. And what I was basically doing was putting words into, making explicit what her kind of intuitive feelings on this were. And then just elaborating or spreading to everything else in life, which again, after you've got food and sleep, you really do have a lot of bases covered.
I'm just curious, where did you guys meet?
We met in residency, so part of the medical training after medical school, 3 years of residency, and then you're an independently practicing physician. So we met in the residency part.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. You are a practicing physician, father of 5, author, co-written with Logan, of course. And then what is a typical household of the Aaron family? House which has no rules. The book speaks about no screen. The book speaks about eat what you want. There are so many things that you're presented there. So what's your typical household if I come on a ordinary Tuesday?
Yeah. The thing that would be most surprising is, it's a pretty normal household, I think. Aside from having 5 kids, that's quite abnormal. We kind of stumbled into that, but it's pretty orderly. It's pretty neat. It's pretty clean. We're not obsessive about cleanliness, but it's not chaos. I think a lot of people assume. I know a lot of people assume. A lot of the haters say, "Oh, if I did this, there would be chaos." And it might be the case. If you go from having a fair number of rules to suddenly having no rules, chaos would ensue. I'm not saying that's not the case, but it doesn't mean that it would perpetuate indefinitely. So it's a pretty normal place. I think our kids are pretty normal in terms of how respectful and polite they are. If anything, probably maybe a little bit more kind of respectful and polite. They're very responsive to us. If we ask them to do something, they almost always do it. The younger kids obviously don't. The 2-year-olds or
that may be a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
2-year-old.
But it just functions pretty normally, I would say. The abnormal things are that the kids have tablets around and they pick them up and will stare at a tablet and watch YouTube for, sometimes a couple hours. The other thing is they're home during the day. They don't go to school. But again, while they're home, they use their tablets a fair amount, a couple hours a day, and they will go into the pantry and get cookies, and they'll get ice cream out of the freezer and serve themselves anything that they can dig up that's in the house. And we do stock the house with chocolate and potato chips. And we regularly go to the gas station and get candy, and there's bags of candy around. But they also eat hamburgers and French fries and pizza and vegetables and salads. And two of them eat pretty much, I would say, quite a broad palate. One of them is still pretty picky eater, but and the 2-year-olds are very broad as well, but they kind of eat what we eat. So I would say we have one picky eater out of the 5, which I think if you take any selection of 5 kids, having one picky eater wouldn't be surprising. That's the big difference. And then, since the kids they don't go to school, they're up, it's 9:00, they're upstairs banging around, horsing around, playing. I would say the other thing that may be notable is there is really, I think, almost no anxiety, tension. There is, especially at night. That's one of my favorite things about this, is that just when it gets dark, the evening comes, bedtime comes, it's a natural process. And we're not making anybody go to sleep so that they can wake up early for school. And the same thing in the morning. The mornings are very easeful and peaceful. I think those are notable differences from what a household is like for other folks.
I'm sure, my listeners, when they hear this for the very first time, the kind of things that you made available in the house and access to the screens and junk, how they label it, it may be a radically new idea. And people, when they're exposed to ideas which are radically different from what they have believed for many, many years, how do you think they can process that? Like sometimes an idea comes and presents itself and you can't unsee it. Like it's just like the rubber band has been, expanded and you can't go back to the original size. To some people, it's just a shift in the way they look at life and things. But many have a very strong ideology about parenting itself. So they hold on to it so tight that when ideas like the ones that you present, they feel very threatened, right? Like they feel like this guy is like a lunatic. He's experimenting with his kids, or what is he endorsing? So how do you suggest people explore this space when even willing to open up to these ideas?
It depends on which ideas you're bringing to it, right? Like you're saying, some people gravitate toward kind of contrarian, extreme ideas. It's just interesting, and the shock value is kind of an appeal. I'm that kind of person. I want to see like, oh wow, what's the extreme here, and kind of play around with it. Other people find that very off-putting and, label me a radical, or, I'm happy to, I'm happy with the label, but, extreme and dangerous, basically. So if you're the contrarian type, the philosophy might be just very appealing. Some people like the idea of putting their current ideas on pause and examining an entirely new framework and seeing what that looks like. And in the book, I try to give that framework in chapter 10. I explain the philosophy. I go through the Popperian, the Karl Popper view on the philosophy of knowledge, David Deutsch's additions to that, and how radically different that is from the conventional view, and then what that means for kids. And I think some people, I was open to something like that, but I think it's a very small portion, and those people know who they are, and you don't have to do much work. You just kind of present the book and say, hey, you might enjoy this. So if you go on the other end, persuading a person who is, I don't know. You never know. Also, it's an interesting thing is that even people who seem rigid rigidity is like a very high, is very volatile actually, right? Because once it breaks suddenly and irreversibly. So just because people are rigid might be, they can just have an epiphany. So, but overall, you don't have to, I try to make the case that this is not an all or nothing proposition. I'm not proposing that you either embrace my view and do away with rules completely or not. Instead, there are ways to make gradual changes. And so I think almost every parent today values freedom a fair bit more than conventional parents did, in decades past. Almost everybody wants their kid to have autonomy in some way. They want them to be independent. They want them to be free. They don't want to be breathing down their throats. They want them. So if that's the goal, you could simply ask, how can I increase the amount of freedom that my kids have? And I try to offer some tools for that. One of the chapter, I go through several different areas where you could just turn the dial of freedom up in this way, try this, try that. But in general, if you just take every single rule that you have in your house and you say, I'm going to put an asterisk on each rule. And the asterisk is, there's no shooting Nerf guns in the house. And then the asterisk is like, unless I can figure out a way to shoot the Nerf guns that I don't have to worry about kids getting damaged to their eyes or break something. And then it's like, well, maybe, you start to think of ideas like maybe they can wear goggles, right? And so that's the whole point of the philosophy, is that once you relax the necessity of the rule, the mind can start thinking of alternative solutions that solve the relevant problem. Another one that I offer is if you want to increase the amount of freedom that your kids have, every time you're going to enforce a rule, just give yourself 60 seconds. Just wait 60 seconds before, right? There's often a rush, like, oh, no, doing this, no jumping on the couch, right? Like just pause for 60 seconds, right? If you don't want the kid to fall on the coffee table, just stand in front of the coffee table while the kid's jumping on the couch. Just think, right? Or even don't think, just wait. Like just let your mind just relax for 60 seconds. The kid might stop jumping, right? That's one thing that happens. The kid might look at you and say, oh, you're worried about the coffee table? I'll stop jumping, right? Stuff like that just starts to happen. If you want to say, get in the car, we have to go to school. Instead it's like, well, do we have to go right now? You almost never have to go right now. So when I'm trying to get the kids in the car, what I'll often do is I'll just go over and I have to put my own shoes on. Yeah. Right. It's pretty annoying when you tell the kid to get in the car and then they wait for you to get ready. Right. So it's like, I'm going to get 100% ready first. And then in that time of getting 100% ready, the kid sees me putting my shoes on and comes over and says, oh, where are we going? Like, we're going to school, remember? Oh yeah. The solutions just percolate. I wouldn't say fall out of nowhere because it is a creative discovery process, but you just figure things out. Yeah. Solutions just emerge spontaneously, create the creative process. You just have to let the creative process run, and you often don't have to think about it.
I think a lot of conventional wisdom has conditioned us to operate on autopilot, right? So a lot of things are by the books. Like, this is the way we run the family or the house. Wake up at this time, sleep at this time, go here, do that. It's so rigid that parent himself, being so occupied with his job or whatever, they don't take the time to really think about, okay, maybe there is a easier way to life. Actually, there's a light mode where you can be much lighter on yourself, not only the child. Right. So I feel exposing myself to these ideas have made me a lighter human, like as I started in the beginning. Yeah, it feels so easy. You're not having this weight on your head of a parent. Oh, I have to do this parenting role, right? You're just in a household where there is another interesting human walking around, playing around, doing so. Yeah.
I notice this when even me in my, ruleless way, I'm still trying to get my kids to do stuff, right? Like I want them to be fed. I want them to eat. I want them to, have clean clothes on. We take trips. Like, I'm still managing them, and I try to do it as little as possible. And even me, I notice that my parents or my in-laws with my kids, they're not doing that at all. Yeah. Right. They are just with them, and they're thrilled to be with them because they cherish the time they have with their grandkids. Yeah. And they're just like there with them as the kid explores and does this and talks about that. And it's like, boy, I could do that. Right. Like, there's nothing preventing me from switching modes to I'm just here. I don't have to be your manager. It's incredible. It's just sitting right there. Like, you could act like a grandparent with your own kid anytime you want.
That is so true. Yeah. That's a beautiful state to be in. And so there is this philosophy underneath this whole thing, with you also. When I was exposed to your work, there was a group called critical rationalism.
Yes.
So this word gets thrown around quite a bit, and it's like a homework in itself. What is critical rationalism? So if you were to explain this concept to one of your kids, What is it really saying about how people learn? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's like, Charles Darwin's main theory was natural selection. So critical rationalism is like natural selection. Natural selection explains how species evolve, right? And the theory of natural selection, we all know how it goes, or if we don't, the idea is you have random variations in DNA, and then that produces different traits, and then those traits get selected by the environment. So the giraffe randomly mutates to having a longer neck, and then those longer necked giraffes can have an easier time eating leaves higher up in the tree. They survive more often compared to shorter necked giraffes. And then those mutated long necked giraffe genes are more likely to pass on to, right? So that's the whole theory. That's pretty much it. It's remarkable how simple the theory of evolution is, and how useful that theory is in all of biology, ecology, cell biology, molecular biology, genetics. Everything in biology hangs on that theory of natural selection. Obviously, there are caveats and whatnot, but you get the general gist of it. So then what Karl Popper discovered is that in the realm of knowledge in general, so human knowledge, how does human knowledge grow and change, right? Just when you're asking, how does life grow and change and evolve over time? How does human knowledge grow and change and evolve over time? And Karl Popper's, he's very similar to Darwin type figure, and critical rationalism is his theory of how knowledge works, akin to natural selection. And it's actually a very similar theory. And what critical rationalism says is that knowledge is created or grown or developed by conjectures and refutations. So critical rationalism, it's I guess what's nice about natural selection is it describes it a little bit. Maybe not natural selection. No, it's not variation in selection. Anyway, so within critical rationalism, the idea is that the way that knowledge grows is that you make guesses. People make guess theories or guess explanations. Popper showed how this worked in science, but it's not just science. It works in every domain: art, history, morality. And you guess a theory, you guess an explanation of what's going on, and then you expose that theory to criticism. In science, you expose the theory to tests, but in the rest of the world, in business, you try to sell that product in the market and see if people will buy it. And so that's the basic idea. The basic idea is that we're constantly thinking up new ideas, new explanations for things, and then we are exposing those ideas to criticism. And the ideas that best survive in the face of criticism are the ones that we run with until we can think of a better thing. So that's what critical rationalism is. It's simply Popper's theory of knowledge. And then I guess one big part of it is that authoritarianism in any guise is irrational. It doesn't have a place in the growth of knowledge, because you can never know that any theory is, no theory is ever beyond criticism. And the idea of an authority is that we've reached something that cannot be criticized. It is known to be true. It's confirmed to be true. No criticism that anybody will ever think of can ever displace this. No new theory that anyone will ever think of will ever be superior to this theory. That's what authoritarians are trying to present to us. That's always wrong. You can never know that a better theory won't come along.
Yeah. So
jumping straight to kids with this is that, if the theory is that 6-year-olds should go to sleep at 7:30, well, you can never know that that's the final theory, right? You can never know that there's not a better time to go to bed. That's not the final and perfect bedtime. And if their grandparents are visiting and they're playing cards and card game is going to 8 o'clock, 8:30, that's a good critique. It's a good criticism of, the theory that a kid should always go to sleep at 7:30. So to apply critical rationalism to children is to say that any theory, any rule, a rule being a theory, is always criticizable and is always able to be outperformed by a better theory. And so you always leave those doors open. You never simply say, nope, we're following the rule and we're shutting ourselves off to criticism of this rule. We're closing ourselves off to better alternative rules. We just never do that. Or try not to ever do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were speaking about, having no authorities, no final expert. There's no certainty to knowledge ever. So before we get into what that leads to, I just want to know, what is it like to live inside it? Isn't it exhausting to never to be not sure? Like, we as humans, we like a sense of certainty about things. So if I have an expert who tells me this is the way things work, this is the way the world operates, it gives me great comfort knowing that, hey, somebody's figured it out and I'm just going to stick to this. But the model that you say is a constant evolution and changing the ideas that you hold so strongly, right? If you could explain how.
So back to the natural selection evolution analogy, what knowledge does. So I was describing how it grows, but what is it? It's the solution to problems. So in the biological world, a long neck is a solution to a problem. Right? A giraffe's long neck, claws, a turtle's shell, right? All of these things are different solutions to a problem. Any solution that exists in the biological world is almost by default a very good solution because it has withstood, right, natural selection. So, turtles survive. Those shells are doing great. And a turtle can be very confident in its shell, all right? Yeah. And the shell is precious. The solution to a problem, a good solution to a problem, a good theory is precious. And so a lot of times people think that, the critical rationalists are, very wishy-washy and, nothing is finally known. So it's all disposable. No, a good solution to a problem is precious. It's extremely valuable. It's what we rely on. The comfort and prosperity of our lives depends on all of these discoveries, these solutions that are very, very good solutions. And a good solution, it's very rare that you improve upon it, but they do get improved upon. So you always leave the door open to improving, but you don't just abandon your theory like that when you think some better theory came along, right? The turtle would be crazy to just, toss that shell and jump on something else. Like, this shell has done really well for me. So you could still have the confidence in your theories, the satisfaction, the safety, the confidence, the security of good theories, while also leaving the door open to. And again, the idea that this theory might be wrong is a little bit destabilizing. So instead, a way to think about it is that this theory can be improved upon. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's rephrasing or reframing that in your mind.
Right. I'm going to use this tool until a better one comes along. So until then, this tool is awesome. And I use it and I love it and I respect it. And I also try to improve it.
Yeah. I remember Naval mentioning in one podcast or somewhere, I don't remember where, but then he mentioned when it comes to the human body and the mind and the psychology, we can rely on the entire human experience because there are some things which have stood the test of time.
Right.
And really, you can kind of, there is a solid backing to it. But when it comes to technology, you don't want to be ancient. You want to be the current. You want to be future oriented because that is where changes are happening at exponential rates, and you want to be cutting edge when it comes to technology. So you got to have the mind of figuring out, where you want to rely for the body and the mind and the human behavior, which has a proof of work for many, many decades, right? So
yeah, it's a funny one. It's close. So that's a Nassim Nicholas Taleb idea, right? The Lindy concept that things have been around for a long time, have proven themselves, and in some sense, you could say yes, they've survived many rounds of criticism, and so something that's been around for a long time
most likely will survive the next future decade also.
That's the trick. You run into empiricism and with that line of thinking. Just because it's been around for a long time, it can be improved on suddenly, right? Like lots of people. Can you give an example?
Yeah,
I mean, Aristotle's physics was around for a long time, thousands of years, right? I think he had a much longer run of it than Newton did. So, they could have said that Aristotle, since these ideas have worked for us since ancient Greece, then, it's 1100 AD. And you say, well, this still, this has been a millennia, right? So these are very Lindy, right? So it's not a good, I mean, you can say the same thing about Newton. And as technology advances and accelerates, right, the timeline for improvements should be shorter and shorter, right? So how long something has survived in terms of a set of ideas, their lifetimes should be getting shorter and shorter, actually. Anyway, it's not the length of time that the thing has been around. It's how good the explanation is.
That's right,
if you needed a quick heuristic, I've got two explanations. One has stood the test of time. The other one hasn't. And you don't have any other time. You don't have any other way to interrogate these things. Fine. Go with the old one. But, ultimately what's more interesting is whether that theory is true or not, and finding what's wrong with it. And, as a quick heuristic, I think it's fine. But beyond that, you want to understand, right? Was Aristotle correct or not? What was wrong about Aristotle? What's Aristotle's physics not accounting for that Newton's physics did account for? And then what is Einstein's physics accounting for that Newton's physics is not accounting for, right? And so now you've got Einstein's, general relativity, and you've got quantum mechanics, and the two of them are not, right? They've been around for a long time. They've both been around for almost the same amount of time, but that's not a reason to decide on which one's more right? What determines that is how well the theories account for what's going on in the world. And, what is quantum mechanics not accounting for? What is general relativity not accounting for? And then can you think of a new theory that does account for those things? And just, adjudicating according to how old the theory is
it's a flawed approach, you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a quick heuristic, but not for anything that really matters. You don't want, you want to spend some time and understand it better.
Great. Just shifting gears, Aaron. So we were speaking about some of the books which have shaped, the mindset around parenting. For me personally, one book which I was exposed to early on was A.S. Neil's Summerhill. So that was a great book, and followed by your book. So these two books have been, these two books have been instrumental and in alignment with how I looked at it. Were you exposed to Summerhill and that work?
No.
No?
Yeah, I should have said I've read a bunch of books on parenting. I actually didn't read that many. I engaged in a lot of arguments and, talked to a lot of people from different schools, but I didn't really, I left the book as more a work of philosophy, and there's no footnotes. I didn't like, comment on the other schools of thought just because there's so many of them, and it would turn into this big, long project. So no, I don't know about Summerhill.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. But
I will check it out. I'm open to checking these things out.
I learned about that from Naval many, many years ago when he spoke in, I think, one of the clubhouse rooms. So that was the thing. How did you get to know Naval, by the way? Was it through AirChat or much before that?
AirChat. I mean, I knew of him because he was a fan of David Deutsch. But when the AirChat app came along, I got an early invite to that and started talking the parenting stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't know anybody that actually did this." So he was interested.
Okay. I have seen you on Twitter where, there is this whole side where people speak about self-improvement. And there is the 5 a.m. club, discipline as a mantra.
Yeah.
So the whole self-improvement world is built on this idea about, cold plunges, productivity.
Oh boy.
I've seen you come and challenge these guys and say, hey. So I want to just hear your thoughts around that.
Yeah, so that would be the other book. I've been tempted to do this. I would love to do it. I really should just do it. It's basically, so that Taking Children Seriously is the name of David Deutsch's application of Karl Popper's philosophy. And this would be Taking Children Seriously for adults. And the concept is the same. It's the same concept that you apply to kids. And the idea is that there is no authority, right? There is no guaranteed correct theory about anything. So theories about bedtimes and screens. There's also no guaranteed theory about personal development or productivity or whatever it is. There is no best type of food to eat. There is no best exercise regimen. There is no best. And so what most of the productivity people do is they describe different ways of being an authoritarian over yourself. Right. So you got to force yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. You got to force yourself to do the cold plunge, to exercise in this manner, to eat in this manner, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason for it, right? The books are all about closing off criticism. There's methods of closing off criticism to this set of life advice. And instead you got to exercise your willpower and your self-discipline, right? Self-discipline means what it says. It means ignore your doubts. Don't let your doubts in the door. Don't give them a proper hearing. Make them shut up and achieve your goals, right? That's what you mean by willpower, achieving your goals, self-discipline. All of this amounts to bullying yourself. And it's I think a terrible thing to do to yourself. And life is so much better when you stop bullying yourself. Stop bullying your kids, stop bullying yourself. It's amazing. We're good at not bullying our close friends and our loved ones. It's great. We figured that part out. Just got to figure out, don't bully the kids and don't bully yourself, because it's equally irrational. Instead, what you want to do is you want to let your doubts are criticisms. Your doubts about, exercising have knowledge content, right? And they lead to improvements, right? If you don't want to go running, it's worth asking why. Why don't I want to go running? It's boring. It's uncomfortable. And then you could say, maybe there are, not maybe, there are ways. There are ways to improve that theory that one should go running for an hour every day. There are ways to improve that theory such that it's not uncomfortable, that it's not boring. And once you open yourself up to types of improvement, then you can discover those things. And then life doesn't have to be you don't need the willpower, right?
Yeah, that's
people
right.
that really excel at things. Well, people use willpower to excel at things, but people also excel at things without having to exercise any willpower at all.
Yeah.
A person who has a passion for a thing, it's nonsensical. There are people who do things that require incredible amount of work and effort and sacrifice. Not really sacrifice. Incredible amounts of effort and work, and achieve incredible levels of mastery. And if you ask them how do they have the willpower to do that, it would be nonsensical to them, right? People who love music can't help but play music and practice over and over. They don't have to force themselves to practice. There's a video of somebody doing this rock climbing thing and climbing this like unclimbable boulder.
Alex, his name is, I guess. There was a Netflix special of him climbing
There was,
a building.
yes, but I was just saying, it's just one of the times it occurs to me. This happens a million times, but this is just one example that occurred to me.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know if it's amateur or whatnot, but it's a video somebody posted on Twitter, and it's like this guy was just doing this, like he was obsessed with climbing up this rock.
Yeah.
And if you
no safety, right? Basically, like he was just doing.
It's not even dangerous. It's just like it's only like 10 feet off the ground, but it's like inverted. Okay. There's no handholds, and like it was just determined to be like impossible or next to impossible. And someone filmed themselves like actually cracking this puzzle. It's like that person didn't need. If you ask them, how did you summon the willpower for this? They're like, I didn't. I wanted to do it. I'm obsessed. Every day after work, I come and, right? People who have a garden outside, right? You don't ask them, how do you force yourself to get out in the garden and weed all those plants? My neighbors, they're consumed with this. They have their own gardening clothes. They're going to conferences and expositions and shows and stuff, and they exercise zero willpower. And that's where you want to be. You want to be, if anything's important, it's important to do it with zero willpower, zero self-discipline, zero self-bullying. And you're always able to figure out how to do that. And if instead, I can keep on going with this. Like, the concept of goals is very funny because if you're like, I made this a goal, right? And that's how I achieve my goals. You have to like delineate what your goals are, right? I don't know, this book Grit. Have you read the book Grit?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's one of these. It's just okay. I'll stop. But when you set a goal, What you're doing is you're saying, these are my priorities, and exercise is lower down than it should be. And I'm just going to move it up, right? And now my goal is to exercise so many times a week. But that something else was there, right? So you moved exercise and you put it here. So you displaced something else down. What did you move down, right? This, if you talk about the Lindy effect, right? This was here for a reason. You had this preference here, and running was down here. So you don't just move it damage free. There's all sorts of collateral damage to all the other stuff you care about. And to just say, I'm going to close off my criticism. I'm not going to think about this, and I'm just moving it up. That's called being a blockhead, right? That's what meatheads do. Just doing it. Like
discipline is freedom,
right? Exactly. Exactly. It's very Orwellian. It's like, you're just becoming an imbecile, right? It's ignorance is bliss, is what you're saying, right? Like, I'm just going to be a moron and not think about it and just force my life to be some other way.
Aaron, you do understand that, we are also creatures of habits. So there are things that we have done again and again and again. And there is a routine which is like on autopilot. So you get up in the morning, maybe you go grab your phone, you go brush your teeth. You do things which you're not even thinking about. Right. So isn't discipline unwiring that? It's a pattern break, right? So you're trying to do something which is going to be a new way of operating. And then once it becomes a habit, then it's on autopilot and it serves you well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Habits are very interesting. So habits always serve you well, right? Even bad habits. What a habit is a very efficient way. Like a habit is doing something that solves a problem for you, and you do it. You get so good at it that you don't even have to think about it, right? So like driving a car is a great example, right? You don't think about. You just get in the car and you just, you can have a conversation and talk on the phone, do all sorts of other things and still move the steering wheel and signal the turns and all that kind of stuff. So that's very good, that process of making a routine or a solution to a problem so efficient that you don't even think about it. When you get a bad habit, is that basically you are using a certain solution to a problem that has collateral damage, right? Like I eat when I'm stressed, or I have a beer when I'm stressed, but now I'm getting a beer belly and I'm getting a little dumb, and I don't know, when I'm drunk, I'm not very sharp and I'm making mistakes, right? So there's collateral damage to having a beer to relax, and that can become a habit. And you just unconsciously go for the beer when you're feeling stressed and whatnot. So you can recognize that, like, I don't like using this solution. I want to use a better solution to being stressed. I want to run. And when I have a drink, I have no motivation to run, right? So there is work in substituting a better, what you're doing is you're finding a better solution, a solution that you prefer those trade-offs to the other solution. So the beer has certain trade-offs that you might decide you don't want to have anymore. And now you have to replace that habit with a different habit. What you have to do is you have to replace it with a different solution. And then you do that new solution enough that becomes
a new habit. Yeah.
But you're not forcing yourself, right? People can break habits, very destructive habits, with a very good reason without any discipline at all. I see this all the time in the hospital. Someone has a heart attack and they quit smoking that moment.
Overnight. Yeah.
Overnight. It's just like, wow, I'm not touching this stuff again. They associate smoking with this horrible experience. And right, it's not about strength and willpower and force. It's about having such a good reason, a better reason, a reason so much better that you change what you do.
I've noticed that even with, you go to somebody's funeral, and then in the moment when you're at the funeral, it occurs to you that life is so short, relationships matter, everything kind of amplifies. And then suddenly you go back home with a sense of gratitude that you have a lovely family, you have people around to talk to, you have your children. And there's a shift immediately after such an experience, right?
Yeah, new reasons can display. So the thing is that I misspoke there with the habits. You're still thinking when you're doing the habits, but you're thinking in a way that is not in words, right? And that is not conscious. But your brain is still, right? When you're driving a car, your brain is still calculating how to turn the steering wheel and when to step on the gas and do the turn signal. So just because it's not conscious and it's not in words doesn't mean the mind isn't still thinking. And so your mind is always running on reasons, on thoughts, on theories, on ideas, no matter what. That is like the big thing that's different with this theory, is that, kids are running on reasons, adults are running on reasons, all human minds. The pancreas is not running on reasons, right? The lungs are not running on reasons. They're just responding physiologically. But the mind, the human mind, is always running on reasons. Even if those reasons are hard to put in words, even if those reasons are unconscious, which is what habits are, they're unconscious reasons.
Yeah.
They still are reasons. And you can displace reasons with different reasons like that.
Yeah. And then the change is instant. It need not be endured with hardship, right? That's what you're trying to say.
Right. And it's not easy to find a reason that's so powerful and better than the other ones that it replaces it in an instant, but it's always possible. It's always possible to gradually find them, to fine tune them, but it's also, so the analogy of a habit being this ingrained deep ditch that's kind of like, etched on your brain is wrong. They're always changeable.
Yeah. I like that, you do go and, challenge these guys who are in the self-discipline space on X. There's one other thing I noticed about what you do on X. I remember when the book came out, there were some harsh reviews which started landing. and I noticed you on X working through critics one by one, not deflecting, not getting defensive, but you really took the time responding to them in a very rational manner. So like, where does that come from?
That's critical rationalism, right? That is, criticism is, you're always open to it. Your critics are doing work for you for free, right? Anytime somebody's criticizing something, they are, right? They're showing flaws, or they're trying to show flaws. And anytime you actually discover a flaw, that's an opportunity to improve it, right? So, scientists are trying to find the flaws in their theories, or the flaws in the existing theories. Those are the gateways to, we have to improve this theory so that it can account for this flaw. So if somebody's giving you shit on X, then they're working for you for free. And
that is interesting framing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the best attitude to take. So anytime in life that someone is, giving you a hard time, as long as they're not being mean.
Yeah. And it's a civil discussion of sorts, right? I think.
Right. Or even if they're being snarky or rude about it, there's a kernel of some point that they're trying to make. So if they actually make a point, then it's extremely useful to explain that point. And so a lot of times people would raise points that I didn't address in the book. So it gives you an opportunity to, right? Yeah. And then also responding to them just forces you to rethink it, and, your mind goes in different directions. So air chat is actually how I was able to write this book, because I argued with a lot of people on air chat about these ideas. It was just over and over and over. And it would be the same argument over and over and over, but have a little twist on it this way or a twist on it that way. Or my mind would construct a rebuttal in this way, and then it would construct it in that way. And the next thing you knew, I had this very thorough, comprehensive, cohesive edifice. And I think this is one of the reasons X is underappreciated, is that there's lots of arguing that goes on, and arguing just makes people understand their ideas better. If you had to argue it, you understand it better. And I really like that about X, and it was a nice opportunity to, and it's also fun. It's hard to like on the podcast and stuff, it's hard to explain the theory when someone's agreeing with you on everything. And it's getting challenged on things that actually makes it easier to explain things, I find.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it compels you to think through from your own framework, and then the gaps become much more clearer if it exists in your own thinking, right? So
you see yourself as you're making the argument, you see like, ooh, that was a little weak there. Like, I don't think about that one.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what are you most unsure about right now in your life?
Well, relevant to this, I've stepped back from a lot of my hours at work, so I'm doing a lot of stay-at-home parent most of the time, and it's me and all 5 kids, and it's very hard. it's very hard to come up with ideas of things to do that are not, that don't step on the different kids' toes because they don't want to do things all together all the time. But I can't be with them individually all the time. And I don't know, doing this with 5 is quite hard, especially when 2 of them are 2.
Thanks, Aaron, I think, for being so honest about that. Like, I feel sometimes you as an author has this persona that you need to carry, that, you're the know-it-all guy about parenting.
Yes.
So what's going on? You haven't figured out what you're going to do in the house, right? So
yeah, no, not a know-it-all. And it's not try to say this over and over. It's not a recipe for how to do it, right? This is a theory for how to create the recipe in the moment, right? Like how to figure it out in the moment. But there is no off the shelf. People are unique, and there just is no way to raise them.
If your kids were to listen to this 20 years from today, what do you hope they hear you say about them?
Oh man, I mean, I try to be very preserve their privacy and not. I just hope that they recognize their dad really cared and really did his best for them and shared whatever things are working well with other people to take or not as they wish. Yeah, I want them to think that their dad was a humanist and cared about them as humans very much, and try to figure it out.
Great. Okay, we are in the last segment of the podcast where I have some rapid fire questions.
Oh, cool.
And you can or you may not respond rapidly, but let's see. Okay. Okay, so are you a coffee or a tea person?
Coffee.
Okay, how many coffees do you have?
1, sometimes 1 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
1 in the morning, yeah.
Okay.
1, sometimes 2.
All right. Is bedtime fixed in your house? So how do you actually operate in the house? Like each one has their own bedtime?
No, people go to bed when they're tired. We take the twins up and say, "Hey, we're going to bed," and the kids like to join us. We read. Yeah, so everybody goes to bed roughly the same time. But they enjoy our company, and but if somebody wants to stay up, we let them stay up.
Can. Okay.
But they pretty much don't.
What's the most unschooled thing one of your kids has taught themselves with zero help from you?
Oh, a very school type thing. There's a huge number of facts that they've learned with zero help from me. My daughter has taught herself to draw. She's using these drawing apps. And then, she did ballet. She did a lot of ballet and gymnastics with zero input from me. And wow. Those look like, and karate. She would find like karate teacher and a ballet teacher and a gymnastics teacher.
That is so cool. Okay. One word your wife would use to describing you.
Reliable. They should go for that. That was an important word early on, and I tried to live up to it.
I've read that you once founded a student group against overpopulation.
Oh boy!
So before you went on to have 5 children, so is that true?
It's true.
I have questions around that though.
Oh yeah, no, I fell for that one hard, but I've been cured.
Great. A talent nobody would guess you have.
Ooh. Juggling. Juggling is my secret talent.
Oh, you can do that?
Rare. Yeah. I'm a pretty good juggler.
No, you mean to say that like life task or the real juggling?
No, actually juggling pins and balls and clubs. Yeah.
Where did you pick that up from? Like childhood? You were good at that?
As a kid, and there was this juggler in town, in this small little town, and I learned how to juggle, and he was like professional juggler and just got better and better, and it's a rare, pretty rare thing, so you can stand out.
When was the last time you displayed that?
I mean, I juggle stuff around the house all the time. I used to do like little performances and things, but I haven't done that in forever.
That is amazing. Okay. What's the last song you put on repeat?
On repeat? I mean, Baby Shark, but I listen to Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick, which is two 20-minute sidelong epics. And I just was listening to that over and over recently.
Oh, wow. Okay. I haven't heard that. I think I need to check
progressive rock. I like progressive rock. And
do you play it loud in the house or?
No, just for me. Yeah.
Okay.
No one would tolerate that.
Okay. What's the best meal you have ever eaten?
I'm not a foodie. I had breakfast on the Big Island in Hawaii with my friend Matt in the morning. It was outside. It was more about it was Eggs Benedict, but it's the perfect setting.
Okay, the settings was something memorable more than the food.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a film or a show or you'll defend to death?
The Big Lebowski. The Big Lebowski is just an exquisite movie. I have a lot of favorite movies.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Like, it's a fairly recent one or an older one?
No, 98, the Coen brothers. I don't know. Fargo, No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
It's a comedy. Yeah, I defend that to the death. And Jerry Seinfeld, the comedy show from the 90s.
Okay.
Otherwise, shows, I don't. The early Rick and Morty seasons were incredible, but they fell off pretty hard.
A book you push on absolutely everyone?
Oh, The Beginning of Infinity. That's the book that I actually give to people all the time is Selfish Reasons to Have More Kids. It's short. It's by Brian Kaplan. It's great. It's like the most impactful book. Like, I give this to people, like, just read this book and have more kids.
Do you give it to youngsters more often than the older couples?
Everybody. I mean, but yeah, young people, but peers, people in their 30s, people getting married, anybody who just like talks about kids and kind of moans about it.
Wow, I should have met you many years ago then. My wife would just complain now, like, no, it's too late now. Like, so.
Oh, well, like, yeah, I could talk to you about that too.
Wow. What's the most used app on your phone?
YouTube.
Okay, so you consume mostly YouTube on the mobile. I watch it on the laptop generally, but then on your phone, it's on
all the time. I use it as like audio mainly. It's just it's how I consume most audio. I mean, pretty much everything, podcasts and shows and stuff, even documentaries. I like to listen to documentaries. So I pay for the YouTube Premium, so it doesn't shut off when you turn the screen off. And
that's a really useful feature, right? The background audio.
It's amazing. YouTube just has everything. Like it's absolutely incredible. If you want to learn about something, I just get YouTube going, and then the algorithm starts showing me stuff, and I just like listen to it and get up to speed like that.
All right. What was your first job ever?
Out of college was teaching.
Oh, you straight went to teaching after college?
Yeah, it was a first real job. Yeah, I did.
What did you teach?
7th grade biology, 8th grade physical science, 11th grade chemistry, 12th grade physics. I was the soccer coach, baseball coach, directed the play, class advisor, chess club, juggling club. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That is so cool. A piece of productivity advice you think is a total nonsense?
Oh. All of it. Yeah. Productivity advice is total nonsense. Grit. The book Grit is the wrongest book anybody ever wrote. I think read the book Grit and then just like, this is so wrong.
So you read the book Grit and then come out and say, these are things you shouldn't do in life, something like that.
Right. It's do the opposite of this. Like
if you had
intuitiveness. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted. Yeah, please go ahead.
No. I can say just willpower, stick-to-itiveness, grit, resolve, self-discipline.
If you had one Saturday entirely to yourself, no kids, no hospital, what would you do with it?
That I don't have a short question for. See, that is life, right? Like you'd have to figure out what to do. I used to get when I was teaching, you'd get a snow day, which means like a random day off. And I would get so stressed about taking full advantage of my day off, right? Because I'd want to sleep in. I wouldn't want to wake up. And then I would want to eat what I want for breakfast. But now it's getting late into the morning and I'm squandering, right? So I should be doing this. But then it's like, okay, but I don't have enough time to do that. So I'll do this. And then I'm the indecisiveness and like I'm not getting anything done. And like I should be enjoying myself. And now I'm like, wow, what a microcosm of life. Like it's extremely hard. There is no recipe for what to do.
That's a deeper answer you gave me. That's interesting. Okay, so you don't want to psych yourself up thinking about optimizing the day because I now have a day and or doing something.
Right. But clean the house. That's the other thing is when I'm stuck, I clean the house and then I feel productive and make the place nice. And this is where I live and this is where I exist. I be here, and so. It's just nice having a clean house, and I enjoy cleaning up.
Awesome.
So I might just do that.
Wonderful. Aaron, thank you so much for your time and for this conversation. I really had a blast, exploring the other side of your personality because I was more interested in you than just the parenting aspect alone, which you've spoken so much about. So I really enjoyed. Thank you for your time. How did you feel this conversation was for you?
Oh, I love it. That's really great. No, I enjoyed this. It's very different than the other conversations I've had. And, yeah, really fun. And I didn't credit Logan. I always forget to credit Logan Chipkin. So Logan is essentially the co-author of this book.
Yeah,
he was extremely helpful. And he, not just the writing, but the, clarifying the ideas and getting the philosophy right. And yeah, the book is free. There's a free PDF on the website.
That was a question I wanted to ask you. Why you wanted to make this book free? That was
Naval's requirement. He's like, I'll fund the publishing part of it, but you have to have a free.
That is so cool.
I was like, oh, great. I would have done it anyway. I think it's a great idea. I mean, the whole point of this is to get the ideas out.
In fact, yesterday, as part of my research, I was also listening to a podcast in which you and Logan both were there. I think it was the Infinity Loops.
Yep.
I think that
was really cool.
A pretty interesting episode, but very good one. So
yeah, Logan's great.
So have you come to India, Aaron?
I'm dying to, but no.
All right. So if you ever come to India and you come to Bangalore,
okay.
I'll be happy to host you around.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I will let you know.
Yep. So thank you so much, Aaron, for your time. This has been a blast, and we will connect back soon then.
Wonderful. Thanks so much to you too.
All right, that concludes this episode. Hopefully you had fun listening to it. If you really want to get access to the show notes, make sure to go to my website, www.rareerth.com. That is www.rareerth.com. Yeah, it does not have an A in it. And you could also subscribe to my weekly newsletter, which is called as One Idea. Once you're on my website, you can see a link to subscribe to the newsletter as well. That's it for now. See you on the next episode.